Green's Alliance Symposium, which is actually happening this Friday in Light Square. Kim Lee, good afternoon to you.
Hey, Spence.
How are you?
I'm great, thanks.
We had a very brief conversation about this some time ago and a relationship that people were having with AI that's interesting in itself. But screen addiction, it's real, isn't it?
It's definitely real. It's designed to be addictive.
What's the tactic that's used to actually get you in and to prevent you from leaving?
Well, it's all created very seamlessly, right? And it's created so there's no friction points. So when you finish an article, there's one waiting for you. When you finish an episode, there's another one waiting for you. And I have a private telehealth clinic, and whenever I have a person come in with some kind of screen addiction, whether it's addiction to their Netflix or to their social media or to video games, I'm forever explaining to them by pulling out my own phone and then showing to them how they can turn off functions like the autoplay function. And then one day when I pulled out my phone to turn off the autoplay function, guess what? Netflix took away my ability to turn on and off the autoplay function.
Really?
Yes, it must have known that I was doing this and being mindful of my use and teaching other people how to turn it off. And they just removed that function for me altogether, so that the only way I could do it was to log in on a PC into my account and turn it on and off that way.
Right. What sort of, we'll get into sort of brain function a little bit here, Kim, but what sort of pleasure or need is being met psychologically by actually spending that time looking at meaningless garbage?
Well, that's where the AI and the algorithms come in, right? So you and I, we could have different interests. We could be motivated by different things. You know, for one person, they might be escaping some kind of trauma at home. Someone might be having an attention deficit, or another person might want something novel, something surprising, something funny, something that enrages them. You know, sometimes we get sucked into those videos, but it knows exactly where our weak points are because, you know, we're forever giving our data away and our habits. So they will feed us and they know our behaviors. They know, oh, okay, this person's about to pull off. They usually turn off around this time. What can we really give them that will give their brain a spike in dopamine, really reward them for their attention and then keep them hooked?
Yeah. And how on earth do they know that? I mean, we all hear stories of a conversation you might be having about, you know, a certain brand of lawnmower or something like that. And suddenly the next thing that pops up on your mobile phone feed is an ad for that very brand of lawnmower. Now, I don't know if that's a coincidence, but I don't know how that works.
Well, a few years ago, I did speak to someone from the US who is involved in privacy law, and they reassured me that our phones are not tapping in or listening into our conversations, but it might actually be reading our search history. We might have, you know, Googled lawnmowers or, you know, when should I cut my grass? And then it'll feed you suggestions through that. Or it might know that we are nearby someone else, or we're hanging around with our friends, and they might include their search engines in on our feed. But who knows? You know, we sign off on these agreements all the time. Who really reads the fine print? So, you know, I'm not a person that is designing these functions.
No.
I'm only really trying to warn people and to educate people that these devices, these free apps that we download every day, are really using us for marketing and selling items.
Of course. How do you know if you're addicted?
Well, it really becomes a problem when it impairs our functioning. Okay, that is, you know, not going to school in the morning because we've stayed up late, scrolling mindlessly, or we can't pay attention in meetings, or we leave meetings in order to go to the bathroom and check our phone, or it starts to get in the way of our relationships where we start to ignore each other. We don't pay attention to each other the same way, or you know, you might actually get physical complications. So one of the speakers at the conference that I've invited, they published a whole bunch of data looking at people who played video games excessively, and there are things such as repetitive strain injuries, there are neck injuries, there are people who have their tendons of their thumb snapped, or there's a thing now. If you check your little ring finger, you can see whether you've got an iPhone indent on your little finger where it cradles your phone. If you're holding your phone and cradling it long enough, you've got a little indentation into your little finger.
On your pinky?
On your pinky finger, that's it. Yes, the pinky finger.
Wow. I haven't got one of those.
iPhone finger. So, we used to get PlayStation thumbs. So people would be playing PlayStation for so long that they get an indentation in their thumb. There's people who have fractured their spine because they've played VR games for too long. The list goes on.
What? I'm still getting over a broken tendon in your thumb. We're speaking with Dr. Kim Lee, who's a psychiatrist that specialises in screen addiction. You are listening to 891 ABC Radio Adelaide, ABC South Australia and Broken Hill. You might like to make a contribution to this conversation. 1300 222 891 is the number to call. Or you can text 0467 922 891. One of the things, because I do spend time on social media, but mainly as a research tool, and I've tried to get rid of as many of these as possible. But there's often the influencers who are showing off the latest makeup or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, and I can't help but think that part of the reason that this addiction can be a problem is that you want what other people have, and suddenly you can see examples of it all over the place.
Yep. So it's all about comparing ourselves to the Joneses, right? And so all of a sudden our suburb, the Joneses, just got bigger because we're comparing ourselves to people on the other side of the world, people who have things that we don't have, and it's natural for us to want that or to desire that. And I think that's really leading to a lot of unhappiness in today's society, because it's impossible to keep up with everyone, and it's never enough. And so I think that's where the mindfulness comes in, looking at on the tram mindfully, looking at other people on the train. My favorite is when you're on the aeroplane. I always like to go to the bathroom at the back, walk past, and then stand around and just look at what everyone else is doing on their screens and their devices, and just seeing, how many people are doing work, or how many people are watching movies or playing games.
Look, Arthur makes a good point, and maybe this is just a symptom of the era that we live in. But Arthur makes the point that we used to produce an afternoon newspaper specifically for people to read on the bus. There's nothing new in people reading while they're commuting. We don't call them addicted. So it's not addiction now. It's a diversion. Is that a reasonable comment?
Well, I think it's the newspaper on steroids, really. I mean, newspaper, how many pages did that really have? And the advertiser, I could probably finish that in an hour. But imagine that plus the Washington Post, and then you've got the New York Times, and then you've got, Sydney Morning Herald. You could just scroll through endlessly and just be down a very deep rabbit hole. And next thing you know, you've missed your bus stop.
Yeah. And other people are saying, that they, when they're on trains and they see people with their head down, so chiropractors and physios must love this current era because the head is the weight of a bowling ball, from what I'm told. And so, as you said, apart from breaking a tendon in your thumb, which I still can't get over, there can be serious physical body problems, can't there?
Yeah, there was a imaging paper that came out from Queensland, and they discovered that young people were growing bony growths on the back of their head, and they called them horns. And so, to me, that was evidence of the devil's work.
Wow. That's an interesting little parallel. Is there an age group that's more susceptible, or a type of person who's more susceptible to screen addiction?
Well, that Queensland study that we presented this Friday, they found that people...
Oh, you there, Kim?
Sorry, yes, I'm here.
Sorry, we lost you for a second. Your voice got very muffled for some reason.
Oh, sorry.
Better now.
So one of the presenters from University of Queensland, they did find that people who played excessively, especially people who play video games professionally and play for long hours, they were more likely to get injured. And, I've had people who have collapsed from gaming for so long. I've got people who have mastered the 8-finger claw technique. So instead of playing a video game on your phone using just your 2 thumbs, they're holding their phone almost with their hand on top with the 4 fingers on each side and tapping away very fast. And because that puts a lot of strain on your elbows, on your neck, and on your back, this young person, they had to lie down on their back every half an hour because it just caused such excruciating pain and headaches.
But wouldn't that just be an example of dexterity? I mean, that's like somebody playing a guitar and having very nimble fingers, isn't it?
Yeah, but a guitar is, quite long. It's designed ergonomically. I don't know if a little iPhone is meant to be played for hours on end, like a little instrument like that. Yeah, I think it's to do with the amount of strain, and like you said, the head is a heavy bowling ball, and your brain is quite heavy, and your neck is not designed to be in that posture for hours on end.
Yeah. Hey, Dr. Kim Lee, thank you. So the symposium is this forthcoming Friday. What do you hope to get out of this?
Yeah, well, we're hoping to invite people from education, from health, to really look at the policies and to try and improve and patch any gaps. The Premier did ban smartphones from high schools across the state, and that's a great intervention. But now I'm looking at, how do we block kids from accessing video games or pornography or social media whilst they're in class? And from my understanding, a lot of kids are slipping through the cracks because they're getting addicted to their devices when they should be learning.
Dr. Kim Lee, nice to talk to you.
Thanks, Spence.
Bye.